Hi, my name is Benedict. This will be a shortish video about limiting and clipping in mixes. There is a certain amount of confusion, and I see some strange things being done. Not having to go at anyone in particular, but it spreads, and I see people making these strange decisions because they've kind of watched somebody who does weird things. Now, obviously, where things go in your door is your business. Where they can go in reason is a little more interesting. And sometimes people use that and it's kind of weird what they do. Where you want your limiter to go is inside this box here. So if we woke up one morning and we had a piece of music, thoughtlessly made from a whole pile of Rex loops. Actually, the drums are from Bomb Squad, as in Public Enemy, and they are good, but I'm kind of taking the piss a little here. I had to come up with something super quick. So if we've got our piece of music, but we're going to go, oh man, that's not loud enough. Look at those levels. They're sort of like minus 8 dB. It's just not loud enough, dude. We've got to master it. So you probably will hear about limiting. So people will go out and they will find the limiter that comes in their door, or even worse, they will go, oh, well, the limiter that's in my door must suck because it's stock, and stock must suck. I need to go out and buy Odone. Whatever. That's your business. But people will put in the limiter and then they will turn the level up. Now, okay, it's louder, but at the moment it's just brutalized. Even though there's not a lot of clipping happening there, we've got maybe 6 dB, and I see a lot more limiting get done, it's not the nicest way of doing it. We really should, and this is not going to be a mastering thing, it's just going to be about limiters, we really should have a sense of our mix feeling loud in its own way, as in solid already, without relying on a maximizer to jam or a limiter to jam everything in and squish it together, because it creates some horrible issues, like it undoes our mix. But we put our limiter here. We do not put our limiter somewhere down here or in some sort of weird way between our master out and our wiring up here. That's just, there's no sense to it. Yes, people want to tell me all about how they've got some use case and it just is so much more uber, and no. This is really where you want to put it. Unless you have a really compelling reason that you absolutely fully understand, put it here. The way it gets wired is just the same as any other situation. Your sound comes from the beginning of the channel, goes to the device, and goes back out again. Okay, it's not going to look that way in most other doors. You just put it in the little matrix slot and it looks after itself. Reason just gives you the ability to put things in odd places, which is not always wise, but the fact that you can do it. So again, we have this mix. This mix is a little quiet, but this is quite normal for mixes to be around this kind of level. This is a reason why Reason's devices generally come in at about minus 12 dB. So we can just do this. And that's about right. We're just hitting the peak, and our RMS is sitting at around minus 12 or 0 dB if we're going to read the V thing. We've got a tiny bit of action here, 1 or 2 dB of limiting. That is it. If you are hammering a lot into your limiter just because it's the only way you can make your mix seem to feel, then you got it wrong. So we've got two choices here. Fundamentally, we can use a limiter. Fast or fast auto will be what most people tell you. And it's sort of okay, but the nature of a limiter is that it's an extremely heavy-handed compressor. So what happens is that once your level reaches that ceiling, the threshold, then essentially the ratio is not 2 to 1 or 4 to 1, but it's an infinity to 1, 100 or 1,000 to 1. It's as close to infinity as is mathematically possible in the situation, whilst minimizing distortion. And therefore it's turning the level down. So as we know, a compressor, once the kick drum goes over, it actually turns the level of that drum down. We can use it to kind of tighten the drum. But this is what's doing to the mix. It's turning the level down. So as well as sort of pulling quieter parts, quieter instruments and reverb right up and giving you this kind of sounding mix, then it's also pushing the mix down. So your other option is a clipper. We shall look at a standalone clipper and then work out how we can do it in Reason. Just because if I show you, then this looks a lot more visual. So we've got our... Let's push into this. Still the same sort of numbers. This one, as we see, is showing a little bit of overs because clippers don't necessarily guarantee that you're not going to have overs. So we can use some softness. That's better in many ways if you're not doing an awful lot, because what we're doing is, rather than saying, oh, you've gone above this level, therefore we're going to turn the whole track's level down, we're looking for level, like for more volume, for more punch, and so we're turning our volume down. How sensible is that? Not very at all. What a clipper does is anything that goes above this level here, see here? It just hacks it off. It just goes whoop and hacks it off. If there's no softness, it's quietly cut off, which of course is great for the Public Enemy kind of sound. If we go soft, then there's a transition between where the level is, and so it becomes like a soft knee in terms of the hacking off. So if we say, okay, let's clip there, let's say 95%. See? We got no overs. If we go 25% softness, no overs, our mix is still really bright and clear, and there's no sense of pushing down every time something is a bit loud. So that's very quickly a limiter versus a clipper. The clipper will always sound better. I know there's a manufacturer out there over the last month's been really pushing how they've somehow reinvented and made everything so much better. Pinocchio knows all clippers do this. Clippers have existed for forever. G-clip here is 10, 20 years old. And while it's ever so slightly ugly, there is absolutely nothing wrong with it at all. It does a perfect job of clipping if you want just a clipper. But we'll turn that off for now. Let's get the Himmer out of the game. Let's put our limiter back on. Let's turn this off, but soft clip on. That is the same as G-clip. The only difference here is that you can't actually lower the band, but there's no real need to because you do that with your level in. So you can run nothing but a clipper just using the M class, and it's a good sounding clipper. Let's say we were worried about possible overs because there's always intersample peaks. Well, there can be. There's not always. There can be. In which case we can take any kind of device. I will grab Zellig's Gain simply because that's kind of what I use everywhere. And I can very carefully set anywhere from minus 0.3 of a dB up to minus 1 dB. If you are going very loud, I reckon it's worth putting minus 1 dB. That helps you with the whole LUFS kind of thing. That's about the most I'll talk about LUFS. So now, I'm loud as can be. I've got the extra excitement coming out of the soft clipping, and that's it. That's all mastering really needs to be, provided you've got a good mix in the first place. If this isn't getting you there, it means your mix is broken. That's it. We can use a limiter. It's not uncommon for me to use a combination of limiting and soft clipping. So we could go, let's say, slow, turn off this look ahead, because we don't want it to do that. The clipper's going to handle that. The reason we might do that is simply because the longer it's a transient or a loud bit, the longer a loud bit is there, then the more clipping's happening. Therefore, the greater chance that we're going to hear that not as exciting sparkle, but just as distortion. Therefore, the limiter, with a little bit of care and soft settings, we can actually say, yeah, we'll slowly turn that down after that sound's been there a little too long. Therefore, we can push a little harder into our soft clipper. Excessive in my mind, but we can do that. So it gives you the advantage of a limiter that's giving you just that little bit of push down as your levels really are kind of excessive and excessive for a longish period of time, and the soft clipper will really handle the rest. So you get a bright, lively mix, and your wiring's dead simple. You'll often see me with another gain plugin before my limiter. That's to set my final level. Sometimes it's quite common for me to have one right at the beginning of my mastering process, because when my mix first appears, as you'll hear here, well, that's showing minus 9 dB. 9 dB, 6 dB, 12 dB, not unusual for the mix to come in at that. So rather than pushing here, I can just push here. This has the advantage of showing me how many dB are going into that limiter, and therefore what's being hacked. That's the only reason that I have that, so that I can mix at whatever level I want, and I tend to mix quiet. I'll turn my volume knob up here so my speakers feel like I've got normal room listening volume, which is not loud. It's going to be the same level that I will use to listen to Steely Dan or Judas Priest, or Sisters of Mercy, whatever. Opus 3, 808 State, all going to be at that level, because that's how music is. So I get to feel it, and it should feel the same as one of those kinds of records when I'm mixing. And then I turn my level back, my volume knob back to the right position for what that will sound like when I'm listening to pre-recorded music, and then I will boost here to go, okay, my meters show us we're in the right position here, and we are good to go. That's why I will commonly have a couple of gains here. I do none of that kind of work here as a general rule, unless I've got a problem. If I need the sound to be loud to go into one drive unit, but I want it to be soft to go into the next, then I may have a limiter or just control the out of the first drive, so that I'm not getting too much drive from the second unit. That's it. These, of course, have the advantage of being able to drop into mono. It's just a nice feature there of the device, so you can go, oh, okay, it's going into mono, and while it doesn't sound as big, I haven't really lost anything. We don't kind of lose our singer. We don't sort of come up in mono and go, where's Chuck D? Because there's obviously something very wrong with your mix at that point. So this gives me the guarantee of being at minus whatever dB, 0.3 or 1 dB, whichever you want to be. That's what's going to be on the render. It will not be above that as a general rule. It may go slightly above, but it's going to be incredibly transient. Shouldn't be enough to ever hit the full 0 dB thing, because we don't want that, because YouTube, some MP3s, and some cheapish, but not always the cheapest, but some cheapish DA converters, so somebody's CD player, their Kenwood in their Lancer, is what I always say, can actually be very unhappy. But some really expensive DA converters can be incredibly unhappy and not really know what to do with a full 0 dB thing, even though technically it's all right, so you just never want to get there. That is it. That's all we need to do. There are a couple of different ways of doing it. Yes, we can push in using a gain unit, or we can just push in from there. I like doing it with a gain because it shows me what's happening. I can tell, because this meter is, well, it's not exactly detailed, I can tell whether that's 2, 3, or 4 dB. I'm normally only looking for 2, maybe 3 dB. I'm not a martinet about it, I'm still going with feel, but I want roughly that 12 dB crest factor. So peaks somewhere around 0, VU or RMS somewhere around -12, and it's always going to be safe, and it'll be safe enough with LUFS as well. Yeah, you can go louder if you want, but it's probably just going to sound a bit nasty. Whatever, EDM people will be upset about that, but a better dynamic range is part of what the whole LUFS thing and volume leveling at Spotify and YouTube is about. It's about trying to stop all those mixes from just being no dynamic level whatsoever up here, because it's tiring and people turn the radio off. Want to know about that? Metallica, Death Magnetic, loudest record ever made, and the fans wouldn't listen to it. So they had to put out another mix which actually had, whoa, dynamic range. And then the fans would listen to it and were like, oh, okay, I can get why this record is okay. So, yeah, that was one of those ones where Andrew Shepp says, he jokingly says, I won the loudness war. He went so far the fans wouldn't listen to the record. You don't want to do that, because while Sheps can laugh that he won the loudness war, it's sort of okay, but that's a Metallica record, because it's Metallica. You put a record out there that's just too bloody loud for people to listen to, you're not going to hear from your fans. That's just it. They're gone. They're going to go, oh, this is shit work. I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. I don't connect with it emotionally. It gives me a headache. And they're gone. So better to mix a little quiet. They can always turn the volume up. Or Spotify, should you be silly enough to go there, or YouTube, will have him biggen the volume for you anyway. So the LUFs are going to be roughly the same from your track to somebody else's. The only reason, if doing this properly, for your mix to seem quieter than somebody else's applicable material, no point comparing an acoustic guitar record, solo acoustic guitar, with Cannibal Corpse or some EDM band and going, but mine's not as loud as theirs. Like, no, compare your acoustic guitar record with other people's acoustic guitar records. If the feel of your acoustic guitar record is consistent with other people's, bearing in mind what you want your record to sound like, you're good. If it doesn't, find a mix engineer, because your mix is broken. If there are any questions, ask them on down below, but very simply, your limiter goes here, and unless you're doing something to just de-gain on the way out, because in this case, the maximizer doesn't actually have an output. There is this one here, but if you're using the soft clip, then it becomes a little redundant. So I just use this one here, because I want to use the clipper. Otherwise, that's it. It's the end of the line. I've heard of people putting clippers before their limiter, but I just think, why on earth would you do that? You've already hacked the top off. Why would you then go limiting it? But whatever. Do whatever you like. Try different things, but always ask the question, is this making this track feel better? If it's not, don't do it.